Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, November 9th, 2025, coming at you live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. An absolutely stupendous show coming up for you tonight. Mr. Chris Peters of FloHockey will be joining us. With me tonight is Mr. Arthur Staple. My name is Sean Cuthbert. Welcome to Hockey Night in New York. Arthur Staple, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Sean?
I'm also feeling pretty good. I was almost bad. Because last night, could have made things could have made it a really bad week this week.
For sure.
But the Islanders, pulled themselves up by their bootstraps.
Definitely. It was a big way to cap what could have been kind of an ugly week. So
yes, but we will get into that. Before that, though, I want to remind you about our wonderful sponsors, starting with Knock Hockey, the all-time classic made in the USA. Get your board at knockhockey.com. We are also happy to be sponsored by Razor, Kniff, and Launstein, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And folks, if you are hanging out with us in the chat, you want to get your questions in for Questions Brewing, type in Questions Brewing followed by the question that you have, and we will get to it later in the show. And now let's move on and start recapping some hockey games, Arthur.
You got it.
Let's go all the way back to Tuesday, the 4th. Boston Bruins, it was a chance of revenge at home. Didn't exactly pan out. 4-3 shootout loss, another loss and a tie for the New York Islanders, unfortunately. Quiet first period, shots were 7-3 Boston. Not much coming out of the Islanders end there. Anthony Duclair opens up the scoring. A nice little shot from the high slot off of a McLean face-off win. Yeah. Nice little goal there. Horvat puts them up 2-1, then 3-2. But not enough. The Bruins bounce back both times. Force overtime. Marat Kusindinov ties it with under 5 minutes to go. He also ends up being the hero in the shootout as well. Game we would have liked to see the Islanders come away with 2 points. They only get one. Yeah,
and it was the tying goal by Kusindinov. I know you're not going to get that one right.
Kusindinov.
It's hard to pronounce. But
yeah, a lot of letters.
He's a good little player. Just kind of a mess in the defensive zone on that one. The Alexander Romanov, Tony DeAngelo pair, which has struggled a lot throughout the season. That was kind of the pinnacle of their struggles.
That tying goal.
Yeah, just a lot of guys going to the same spot and leaving some space open for Kusindinov to kind of get around Ilya Sorokin in front of the net. Pretty much untouched, which you don't really want to have when you're up a goal late in the game like that.
Right. Yeah, had him flopping around a little bit. Didn't work out. And as we all know now, the Islanders have not been good in the shootout for a very long time.
No, Franz Nielsen, come back to us.
Or even like Miro Shatan. He used to be money too.
Way back.
I remember.
Yeah, I kind of thought, especially because he had another good game, Matthew Schaefer's got some moves. And I think kind of going with this, whether it's Holmstrom or Horvat or Palmieri, I understand that you're going with the percentages, but Patrick Waugh coaches from his gut a lot, and we can talk about that with some of the line and defense pair changes he made for Saturday for the game at the Garden. Why not just throw Matthew Schaefer out there? Gets the crowd into it. You kick it off. You've got a kid who's never had a shootout attempt before in the NHL. Maybe you're catching the opposing goalie thinking I don't know what to do with this guy. So just the same way that I think a lot of opposing players don't know what to do with him yet.
Right.
So I just kind of felt like the way that the shootouts have gone since Patrick Waugh's been here, change it up a little bit.
No, I think you might be onto something. And because they have such a lack of success there, why not just throw some darts at the wall and see what happens, right?
I mean, that's how Simon Holmstrom got into the shootout. They knew what kind of skill he had, and now he's kind of a default guy for that top three. Let's try to see what we got with Schaefer, I think.
Schaefer in the shootout. What do you think? Maybe next time.
Make it happen.
We'll find out. All right, moving on. Thursday, Minnesota, 5-2 loss. This was not a pretty one.
No.
Not by any stretch.
You were there for that.
I was in the building, and it was it was a somber night at UBS Arena.
That is a good way to put it.
Yeah, not great. 2-0 lead for Minnesota in the first period. You got a 4-goal second period bookended by Heineman and Pajot, but unfortunately in between you get Faber. He gets the goal that just a minute after they get within 2 goals, right? So, typical Islanders where there's a little bit of hope that creeps in, but they wrestle it right back away right soon after. So then you have Pajot. He gets that, minute 9 seconds to go in the second period, makes it 4-2. You maybe have a glimmer of hope there, but nothing doing for the Isles in the third. Ends up getting up 5-2 with Kaprizov scoring there. And
that was a ridiculous one.
That was a rough shift for Pulock. Real rough shift for Pulock on that one, yeah.
Yeah, but again, Romanov, D'Angelo, the fourth line, which, we talked about it last week too. Seeing Casey Cizikas, who, again, we love Casey Cizikas. What a great Islander career he's had.
Mm-hmm.
Now that he's really not involved in the penalty kill, he's not part of that fourth line. You see it kind of being an afterthought group. And they had a rough one against Minnesota. And really, at home, when you can manage the matchups, you shouldn't see your fourth line out there against anybody that you don't want to see them out there against. But it felt like, especially the first period, kind of the goals where it's a bit of a scramble. Again, not really protecting the house in front of David Riddick in that game very well at all, making him scramble. And then, like you said, in the second period, you get a goal, you can make it 2-1. Okay, you got a little hope because we know that the Islanders have been a really good offense this year, and boom, you give it right back. That's not the sign of a team that knows how to maybe come back from those deficits as well as you'd like to see them. And then again, get back to 4-2 in the third period, generated really next to nothing.
Yeah.
And that is, again, unfortunate because that's when you want to see them open it up and kind of, okay, you're going to trade chances. Your goalie's going to have to make some big saves if you're going to try to rally to get back in it. Down 2 goals. Minnesota, who's been a very poor, even worse defensively than the Islanders this year, is able to lock them down, coming off a back-to-back. Not what you want to see at the end of the game.
Yeah, and this is a Minnesota team who's been struggling themselves. I mean, you look at this, on the schedule and say that's a game that they can win at home, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't go their way. And this is the kind of hockey now that's been taking shape for the Islanders here now that we're, getting a little bit later into the season. It's coin flip hockey. It's like, who's winning this game? When they're playing these mediocre teams, because we talked about this before the show, and they really haven't hit a rough patch of the schedule yet. And we're going to see that coming up this week. We're going to talk about that later. But, you look at the games that they've had so far, and most of the teams they've played, haven't been great so far this season, right?
They're teams that are on their level, skill-wise, results-wise. You can win, if you string together some of these wins, that's how you get to the top of the standings. There's a lot of mediocrity so far in the first month plus of the season.
Right.
You see 15, 20, maybe even 20 teams who you say, I don't know if that team's that good. So, and the Islanders have played a bunch of them, and they really have not produced enough results against that group of teams so far.
Right. And you look at any of those games, right, and it just seems like, against that kind of competition, this is maybe what we're just going to come to expect. It doesn't matter if the Isles go up 2-0, if the opposition goes up 2-0, or if it's a seesaw battle, goal after goal, right, going back and forth. It always seems to be, with the exception of the Minnesota game, I guess, but they always seem to be tight, right? It's a game won by a goal and maybe an empty netter, or maybe a shootout in some cases, but they all seem to be close. And even though these are teams that aren't that competitive, and so for me, it's a little concerning because when we get to the Utahs and the Colorados and the Vegases of the world, what is it going to look like then?
Yeah. You do worry. I feel like since we haven't seen it, we don't really know how they're going to react. I mean, Again, this is a 500 team so far. They were a 500 team a little bit below last year. They were a 500 team the year before. You want to see them start to break out of that rut. And obviously when you're facing the good teams, maybe that's a good time to do it, to raise up to the level of your competition, as opposed to maybe playing down to it, which they've done at times this year so far.
Well, we look at last night, and maybe their most complete game of the season.
Sure.
5-0 drubbing.
Thank you, New York Rangers at home, I think.
well, let's go back to these narratives that we've talked about, right? Like the first career goal, or the guy who hasn't scored in 37 outings, right? And you look at this game on the calendar and you're like, man, they still haven't won a game at home. And you're like, well, we know it's coming this night, right? And so I think we were all kind of prepared for the Rangers getting their first win at home against the Islanders last night, right?
Yeah, but I think maybe the Rangers' futility at scoring and certainly producing chances, maybe that brought the Islanders' confidence up to a level that it needed to be.
So.
And you saw the way that they converted off the rush, 3-2-on-1 goals, and those are not situations that the Islanders are always lights out in.
Right.
But they took advantage of kind of poor defending on the first two. You get up 2-0. You've got a team that's not converting after the Rangers, I think, owned maybe the first 7 or 8 minutes of that game.
Yeah.
Sorokin was strong, which we needed to be. You get the lead, and you've got a team that super frustrated, showing their frustration. JT Miller smashing sticks all over the ice. They're all looking to the roof every time they miss something. So you take advantage of a team like that, and it was good to see the Islanders go into that situation where you say you're a little tense that they're going to like let the Rangers kind of get off the mat here. They didn't let them off the mat, which was really important.
Yeah, and I think even more important as well is, you look at going into the third period, they have that lead, and you're like, all right, well, we've seen what this Islander team has done so far this season, right? And, even going back to last year, but, I don't think anybody sitting in the Islanders corner of the world was like, okay, this is a surefire win here. You know what I mean? So I was kind of waiting to see how they were going to handle that third period to see if they could really, close the door and shut the door. And to their credit, they did.
Yeah.
They opened it up. They even get a rare empty net goal. They seem to struggle to get those. And, Pajot puts one of those in. And then you really get the icing on the cake with Anders Lee off of that goal. He puts the 5-0 marker up there. And, it's happy days, right? Horvat still has the golden stick. He has 2 goals. He's playing great. And you wonder, is it the lineup changes? Because, Roy finally did scramble things up a little bit. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But he changes up all the lines, the deep pairings, everything. And you wonder, is it that? Or is it just because of the struggles that the Rangers have had so far at home? Again,
you take advantage of the situation in front of you.
Yeah.
You've got a team that's not scoring at an unbelievable lack of scoring pace at home.
Right.
This being the 5th time they've been shut out at home, which is totally insane. And you weather the storm early. You need a good game from your goalie in a game like that. You can't give a soft one to let them feel confident about, okay, now maybe we'll score a few goals, especially against a team that doesn't defend very well. And I thought the jumbled D pairs, again, you have some hesitation, but you see D'Angelo, much better game, maybe one of the better defensemen in that game, playing with Pelech, who's been really solid all year long. Schaefer and Pulock, those are Schaefer's going to get big minutes and handle them well and seem to mesh well with Pulock. And I think, you don't want to see Alex Romanov, who's got just starting an 8-year contract, playing on the third pair with Scott Mayfield. But it felt like it was a good chance for Romanov to reset. He's, you heard Patrick Waugh make some comments after Friday's game, how hard Romanov is on himself.
Right.
You got to get a guy like that out of his own head and back in the game. And if it means playing him 4 or 5 fewer minutes with Scott Mayfield on the third pair, letting him be physical, maybe letting him get up the ice a little bit more, which he doesn't really do with D'Angelo. And Romanov, I think, has shown that he's good at getting up the ice and getting into the play. I think just keeping it a little bit more simple for him. So the D-pair changes worked really well. You didn't have to sit anybody. You'd like to see that group of 6 succeed. And, we were talking about, should D'Angelo sit, let Adam Boquist get in there. But, Tony D'Angelo is a skilled guy, and I thought he played a really good game, especially in the Garden where he gets booed all the time. And the forward line changes, I think when you've got Horvat going as well as he's been going, it doesn't really matter who you're going to play with him, as long as there's guys who can get him the puck. Like you said, he's got the hot stick. Everything he shoots goes in the net. That play by Jonathan Drouin on the power play.
Right, didn't even get to that. That was a ballsy little play by him.
Somebody mentioned that to me. That was very Josh Bailey-esque, passing out of a situation where you're like, what do you do? Oh, okay, worked out. We'll take it.
Yeah.
But Drouin I thought had a big game. That's good to see.
Going to assist, yeah.
He understands the moment of Islanders-Rangers, where the Islanders are in the schedule, where they are in the standings, how big that is for a guy who's in his first game of that rivalry. You like to see that. And I thought Anthony Duclair, again, really good game. He's going to be a guy who's going to
great dish to Drouin,
earn his way back up. I think the lineup, being on the third line last night was good. Maybe he can get back in the top 6, and you saw a lot of good things all over the lineup, and that's what they needed, especially after such a dud the night before.
No question, Arthur. Well, that went fast, so we got a break for Chris Peters. So thank you all for tuning in to Hockey Night New York. We'll be right back.
Remember the game Knock Hockey from when we were kids? It's an absolute legendary game that they stopped making a couple years ago. However, it's back, baby. You can go to knockhockey.com, that's N-O-K hockey.com, and get it for your kids or your nieces and nephews or some random neighborhood kid, because They're all going to need it, because otherwise they're going to be playing video games for the next 6 months. And if you don't have kids, get it for yourself. Or better yet, your girlfriend. She'll be hurt and confused at first, but once she starts slamming that puck around, she's going to love you forever. Or at least the game. Go to knockhockey.com. It's a little pricey, I'm not going to lie, but it's made with real wood by hand in Michigan. When's the last time you heard of a product being made like that? This holiday season, be an absolute legend. Make everyone happy. Bring the family together. Go to knockhockey.com.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Hope you enjoyed the ads. Now let's get back to Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for On the Line, presented by Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein, ready to fight for you. And join us right now from FloHockey, the host of the Prospects podcast, Mr. Chris Peters. Chris, welcome back, man. How you been?
I'm good, guys. Okay, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
Yes, absolutely. So, hey, let's start off. Just tell us a little bit about what's going on at FloHockey these days. How's things over there?
Oh, man, what isn't going on at FloHockey? It seems like. I mean, it's been a pretty busy year. We've had a lot of great things happening. We added the OHL and the QMJHL as streaming partners this year. So it's been unbelievable to be able to have some of the best junior hockey in the world joining our platform after adding the AHL last season. So, if you're an Islanders fan, you can watch the Bridgeport Islanders, you can watch the Worcester Railers, you can, watch a lot of your prospects, Kayshawn Aitchison, anybody you want, basically at this point, you'll be able to see on FloHockey. So that's been a lot of fun for me to kind of be a part of it, doing the content on that side, being able to continue to track the prospects, but certainly it's been a really fun season.
Love it.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, Chris. And prospects are now a topic of positivity around this organization, and we'll get to that in a minute. But obviously, the hot topic right now is Matthew Schaefer, the start that he's had so far. Did you, in any of your draft evaluations and run up to the June draft, see that Matthew Schaefer could do what he's doing right now in the NHL?
I don't know if we saw it coming this soon. I mean, really, I think that for me, there was always a level of uncertainty because of the injury. I mean, I think that's one of the things where you miss so much time. That's time, losing reps and, all those other things. But I think what we've seen is that Matthew Schaefer plays the game at a pace that is all his own, from the skating, but also how he thinks the game, the level of maturity that he's displayed, the confidence that he has. It's not put on, it's not an act, it is just how he is. And it's really, I think, part of his personality is a reason for this level of success. But what I'd say is, whenever you have a player that's missed that much time, I don't think there's anybody that could have reasonably expected him to come in and be, a highly productive defenseman playing 23 minutes a night at his age. He's also young for the draft class. So, I think in terms of projection, the projection was he's going to be a number one defenseman. He was the best player in the draft last year. He was the number one guy on my board. And certainly, and that was with the injury. But you just never know. And so I think in those situations, you try to hedge and you say, hey, this might not work out. Maybe even, what happens should he have to go back to Erie? I mean, that was really felt like a real possibility. And you go back to the World Junior Summer Showcase where he went to camp with Canada, played in some games, and, it was like, hey, he looked like a guy who hadn't played in a long time. But I think that actually was a really good first step for him getting back. And then he goes to camp, has a great camp, obviously has a great start to the season. And but to project out a historic start to a rookie season, I don't think any of us saw that coming.
Yeah, Chris, it's been unbelievable. In fact, I've almost been telling myself he's too good to be on the Islanders right now. I'm not used to a player this caliber coming in and just being so incredible, but he's been amazing to watch. But let's swing around the Islanders prospect pool a little bit. You mentioned Aitchison before. He's been putting up monster numbers. Now, I thought he was billed as more of a guy who was going to be more of a defensive guy. Obviously, there was a lot of touting about his physical play and all the hits. He's got a lot of great highlights there, but he's putting up big numbers. Is this something that might be able to translate to the NHL for him?
It'll be interesting. I mean, I think last year we saw the goal numbers were outstanding. I mean, like he's a very active player. He's really good on the power play. He has a great shot, so there's a lot there. I think that to expect him to be, a 15 to 20 goal defenseman on an annual basis might be a little rich, but at the same time, he's been outstanding. And on top of it, the physicality of his game is really exciting. So you have that element to him, and then you throw in this goal scoring element. That's really strong as well. So, I think that he still has some rounding out to do. I think that there's a lot of things that we like about how he plays. He's been off to a really hot start this year. They kind of use him all over the place on the power play, and you see him, kind of pop into space and find holes. And he scored a lot of big goals too. And actually, I think his goal celebrations and the taunts of the opposing fans have become some of the most entertaining moments of the OHL season so far. I mean, he is similar to Matthew Schaefer and how he seems so singular in terms of his personality. I think Aitchison is very similar in that level of confidence, the way that he carries himself, and how he plays, how he plays the game. So, for me, I think he's going to be able to produce points at the NHL level. I think he's going to have the puck a lot. He wants the puck a lot. He has skill. I don't think that he has necessarily the smoothness of a Matthew Schaefer, but what he does have is kind of this brute strength, and then the willingness to go wherever he needs to go, and no one can kind of stop him. So I think we've seen him line up at forward a few times, just kind of like teams given different looks as well. But it'd be interesting to see if he has kind of like that Brent Burns-esque kind of career, because Brent Burns had such a tremendous goal scoring tool, which is rare for defensemen. And that seems to be kind of one of the hallmarks of his game, is this goal scoring that he's had now over 2 seasons, where it's just outstanding. So there's a lot to like about him. I still have a lot of time for him to, I think there's a maturing process that's going to need to happen, but I really do think that the way that he plays is super exciting, and it's been fun to watch this season.
Chris, the Islanders, at least going into this last draft where they really, restocked the high end of their pool, was some of their college guys. You've got Danny Nelson, you've got Cole Iserman, you've got Quinn Finley. Of those college players that are in the pipeline right now, who are you most excited about?
I mean, it might be I don't know if it's a surprise or not, but I'd say, like Danny Nelson probably has the best NHL tools of that group, in terms of what he's going to be. I mean, obviously everybody knows about Iserman's ability to score, but I think Danny Nelson has the opportunity to be a really good number 3 center at the NHL level. I think he's a guy that could potentially play a role, but also has the versatility to potentially move up your lineup. He's played at Notre Dame. They've had a tough season so far this year. He wanted to stay. They're under a new coaching staff, so it's kind of a transitional period at Notre Dame. But he's a guy that, as we saw at the World Juniors in the last couple of years, where he is kind of fits in wherever you kind of need him. There's great versatility there, and I think with that versatility, with his size, his strength, the offensive tools that he does have, he's got great potential to play NHL minutes. But I mean, and it's very exciting, when you see Cole Iserman obviously scoring goals and doing what he does. I think there are definitely some elements of his game that are going to have to improve dramatically for him to be an impactful forward at the NHL level. And I think that there will be things that he has to learn, but he's another guy where it's just kind of like this, the way he carries himself. It really seems like the Islanders, I know they're under a new, kind of a new administration here, but they've got a lot of these guys that kind of have this confidence and this personality to them, that I think will translate really well at the NHL level. And, you know, if they can kind of corral all those personalities in one and make the most of it, I think that's going to be a great thing. But, you know, those two guys there and then Quinn Finley, you know, there's just, I think in college, it's kind of been what doesn't he do because he seems to do everything so well. Nothing really elite about him, but he does so many things well. And I think, again, like Nelson, the versatility, the ability to kill penalties, the ability to, you know, play at both ends of the ice, those are really important traits. But I'd say, you know, Nelson for me is the guy that projects most comfortably into a significant NHL role, which, you know, if you can get a number 3 center out of a mid-round pick, I think you're pretty happy about that.
Well, Chris, all that sounds great to me. Have you had an opportunity to see Eklund overseas at all?
Yeah, on video, yeah. So, you know, I've definitely watched him, you know, and I think that for me right now, he's obviously hasn't scored a goal yet. That doesn't really matter. You know, I think for him, he's going to be such a humongous part of Sweden's World Junior team this year. I think that's actually going to be a great chance. You have to think about the jump from Allsvenskan to the SHL. It can be pretty significant. And I think that his role is kind of moved around throughout the season, but he still plays with pace. He still plays the game hard. He's a really smart player. You know, I think as he transitions into North American hockey and, you know, potentially as early as next year, there's going to be, you know, some opportunity for him to grow again. I don't know that he'd necessarily walk into the NHL lineup next season, but I mean, for me, he's such a smart, competitive player that he's going to find a way to impact the game. I think he's top 6 all day in the NHL. I think there's a lot of things there, and I think we're going to see him be potentially a top line player for Sweden at the World Juniors. And you know, the way Sweden looks right now, and obviously with Canada missing guys like Schaefer and so many others, you know, Sweden very well could be the favorite, and I think Eklund's going to be a big part of that.
Chris, whether it's in Bridgeport, which is obviously having a much better season already after the disaster that happened last year,
it couldn't get much worse.
Rocky Thompson, yeah, it couldn't get much worse. Between Bridgeport and some of the lower round picks that they've had the last couple of years, is there a prospect that maybe Islander fans, you know, they know the headline names in the first rounders, but is there someone in the pipeline who's maybe not as recognized right now that you're excited about?
You know, I think there are certainly some guys that have a chance, you know, like, I mean, I think that there's maybe a few guys, not necessarily at Bridgeport. I think that there's quite a bit of kind of mid-range tweener kind of players that'll be there that are more, you know, kind of prevalent there. Obviously we saw Marshall Warren come up and play for the Islanders. And I think that's, you know, that's a really exciting development. I've liked Marshall Warren as a prospect for years. Obviously, you know, he had the whole thing with Minnesota, and then gets this opportunity and makes the most of it, you know, as a Long Island kid. And so I'm really excited for that, because I think that if you can have players that are almost like you didn't really expect it, and have a way, because he has looked really good in the AHL. He has looked like a guy that can, you know, continue to be called up and play for the Islanders when needed. That's a really nice thing to have. I mean, the rest of it, you know, I think that there's some guys that, you know, one guy that I've liked since his draft year is Eetu Liukas. You know, can he be a role player? Can he be a guy that finds a way? You know, that's kind of one of the players that I could see, you know, getting in there. And then you've got some of these other guys where it's kind of like another found prospect situation with Veramayev, who was a college free agent. A lot of teams were really interested in him. Can you get him going? I mean, those guys, you're going to find out pretty quickly, and they don't have a lot of time to prove themselves. So it's kind of like he's got to get going in a certain way pretty early on to give himself a chance to play there. But those are some of the names to kind of keep an eye out for. And I think the rest are kind of more in junior in Europe. You know, I think I'm still really a big believer in Marcus Gidloff and, you know, other players like that are overseas. But, you know, I think there are some other guys. Jacob Kwasnica has had a great year so far in the WHL. And I'm starting to wonder if Minnesota maybe thought they should have brought him in this year instead of letting him play another year at junior, because they've needed some offense. But those are exciting developments. I think when players pop that you don't necessarily expect, you know, every prospect system needs those guys. And it feels like the Islanders have a few more of them than maybe they did when things looked kind of dire last season outside of the NHL level. But I mean, when you have a franchise changing draft like they did last year, It's pretty exciting to see what the future holds.
Yeah, Chris, a lot of great news throughout this interview. Last one for me, though, is there anybody within the Islanders system that may have fallen off? Is there anybody who maybe had a trajectory somewhere towards the NHL, but maybe struggling a little bit and maybe looks like a guy who may not get there?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough because I think that we see players that are, kind of on a certain path, and it's hard to know when they've really fallen off and when it's just kind of a little bit lighter. I mean, I think when we looked at the last couple of years and you looked at the D pool, it wasn't very deep. And so guys like Isaiah George maybe kind of rose to the top and was there and they were talking about, what's he going to do for the team? That's one guy where it's like, I'm not sure exactly where that goes next, but I still like the player, and it's way too early to say anything other than let's see what happens. I think that's the thing with a lot of these players. And, it's good to have in Bridgeport, they've got some effective veteran players. And I think it's important to have those guys. You're not looking at them as prospects. You're looking at them as the guys that kind of shepherd the rest. And, I think they needed to get some new people in there, and they did that. And I think that's going to help overall. But, I mean, really at this point, I don't think there was anybody that was really high up or mid-tier of the prospect range that I think is worth writing off at this point. There just wasn't a lot of guys to really talk about in the last couple of years. And now we have, these high-end prospects. So sometimes those guys kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit, the guys that you were excited about at one time. But I mean, I think that there's a lot more to look forward to instead.
Last one for me, Chris. As you mentioned, you can't fall off if you're not a prospect, and the Islanders really seem to have such a barren pool. And I know these rankings are subjective, but have you seen in your time looking at prospects and kind of ranking each team's system such a complete turnaround in one offseason that like the Islanders had this past offseason?
It's really rare. I mean, I think a few years back, when the Rangers had, a bunch of draft picks and they started getting guys, but then the reason I bring them up is because you can see how fast it can go the other way. They had a lot of players that were considered really top end guys and didn't pan out the way that they thought they would. So you always want to make sure that you're cautiously optimistic in these kinds of situations. But it is pretty clear when you had, they got a little bit lucky too in terms of how the draft went, because I felt like Aitchison was one of the top defensemen available. He went later than I thought he should have. Eklund went much later than I thought he should have. And they get these players that I think are really, really solid. And teams have their preferences and they're going to pick different players. So I haven't seen too many. I mean, Chicago has kind of it's been multiple off seasons where they've just drafted and drafted and drafted. And now they've kind of turned the corner. But, you get that you go back to the draft where they got Frank Nazar and Sam Rinzel. Those are two guys that are on their roster right now. Kevin Korchinski was actually the first pick, and he's in the AHL. So, that was a moment for that team to kind of start turning the corner, and then Bedard comes in, and then the next thing and the next thing. But whenever you have the first pick and then you have multiple first rounds, you better turn it around. Like, you don't really have a choice but to succeed. And I mean, when you look at who they brought in as general manager and you see what, there's a commitment to building beneath the NHL because you have to have that foundation. That was clearly evident in the way that they selected players, what they've done with Bridgeport so far to help that turnaround. That this is really only the beginning of that stage. So we'll see where it goes from here. But when you hit a home run like Matthew, when you have Matthew Schaefer and you feel really confident, continue to support him with more and more talent. And now you've got that cornerstone, and every rebuilding team or every team that has the first overall pick, you hope you get that. But we've seen in recent years, that's not always what happens. I think it did happen this time for the Islanders, and that's a great place to be.
Love to hear it, Chris. Awesome stuff. Really appreciate you joining us tonight, and hope to have you on soon and have a great rest of your Sunday.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Really a pleasure to be with you, and hope everybody's enjoying themselves watching these young guys get up there.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. Great stuff from him, huh, Arthur?
Hey, Chris knew the brief. Talk good about the Islanders and talk some crap about the Rangers. That's perfect.
Perfection. All right, folks. Want to thank you all for tuning in here at Hockey Night in New York. That will do it for On the Line, presented by Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein. Ready to fight when your good name is on the line. We're going to take one more break. When we come back, it's time for What's on Tap.
When in need of representation, it's not always easy to know where to turn. But whether you've been accused of a crime or need to go to court, Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein, attorneys at law, have you covered with over 100 years of combined experience. With offices in Manhattan, Mineola, and Suffolk, Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein is an award-winning law firm specializing in criminal defense with additional expertise in business debt settlement, trust and estates, personal injury, and more. At Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein, you'll have direct access to your attorney 24/7. Because more attentive service translates to better outcomes. You deserve legal representatives with national recognition and a strong track record of delivering results. And Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein are ready to fight for you. Call 212-LAW-1500 or go to razorandkniff.com to schedule a free, no-risk consultation today. That's RAISERANDKENNIFF.com. Razor, Kniff, and Lonstein. We win cases because we make your problems our problems.
Hey there, welcome back. We missed you too. Now kick up your feet and settle back in to Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Get comfortable. Settle back in. More Hockey Night in New York on the way for you. It's time for What's on Tap. A look ahead at the New York Islanders' upcoming schedule. And, well, Arthur, it's a bit of a gauntlet.
Yeah, it's time to show up.
Yes, a 7-game road trip has begun, if you consider the Garden, just over there in the city, the start of a road trip.
Yes.
But we got 7 games, including that one. Tomorrow, New Jersey Devils, those guys are playing really good this season. You want to talk about tests? This is one of them.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this one, and not only to see the test. Devils are 7-0 at home. Go out to the Rock,
different from the
which
Rangers.
has always been kind of the opposite of what they just went through. And the Devils are a team, unlike the Rangers, finding ways to win. They don't really do a ton. They're not like great special teams. They're good special teams. They're not getting superb goaltending. They're getting okay goaltending, but they have a lot of talent in that lineup. They're very banged up. No Brett Pesce, no Dougie Hamilton. So they're relying on some of their young guys. Simone Nemec, their top 5 pick from a few years ago, is playing some big minutes. Luke Hughes, one of the dynamic duo of Hughes brothers they have there.
Yes.
God forbid they actually get Quinn Hughes from Vancouver.
Stop that.
Yeah, we don't want to see that. But you look at their lineup, their top 6, I think, for me, is maybe the best in the league right now. You've got Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt on the top line, and a second line with Timo Meier, Nico Hischier, Dawson Mercer. Really tough second line. So they are playing really, really well right now, finding ways to win games. I don't know that they're going to blow the Islanders out of the building. But again, I think that's a sign of a good team when they figure out how to win when they're shorthanded or they're not playing at their best. They had their trip out to Denver and California a couple weeks ago and really looked bad in 3 of those games. Bad losses, but they've come back home. They've played a lot better. They've grinded out a couple of wins. So it's a real test for the Islanders. And like we said, the rest of this trip is going to be tough the rest of this week for sure. So it's a good way for the Islanders to kick it off, to be prepared when they do get on a plane and go away.
No doubt about it. And maybe Ilya Sorokin can kind of pick up where he left off last night. Excellent game. We want to see more of that out of him. Maybe he can stonewall the Devils a little bit here.
Yeah, that would be big for sure.
Absolutely. So moving on, the Islanders get a couple days break, and then they head out west to Vegas. The Vegas Golden Knights, that is a 10 p.m. Eastern start. This is another team we know is a Stanley Cup contender. A lot of firepower over there, too. What do you see there?
A really good team. We were just talking about all the mediocrity we've seen so far.
Right.
They're not seeing any mediocrity this week. And you started off with Vegas, getting used to the time change. Obviously, that's always a tough thing to do. The first big trip you take out of the Eastern time zone. It's a long one, like you said. They've got to be mentally prepared. We always hear about, if things aren't going well, it's nice to get away. This is a long time to be away. I don't know how nice this is.
Right.
And I'll be interested to see what the goalie plan is from Patrick Waugh, from Sergei Naumov. If we see Sorokin tomorrow night, which I would think you would.
Yeah.
We haven't really known what the breakdown is.
Right.
But you've got Vegas, you've got a back-to-back in Utah the next night. So I'm interested to see how the result goes tomorrow, and then if that plays a role in how they go into this 3-4, because you want to see Ilya Sorokin get on a roll.
Yeah.
These are tough places to play, whether it's Vegas or Salt Lake and Denver. They're going to see a lot of shots. They're going to see a lot of high-powered offenses. Vegas, I think, has also been a little bit bit by the injury bug, especially in net. So they're, they could be a little bit vulnerable. They're 7-3-4. I don't, outside of maybe Colorado and maybe the Devils, you haven't really seen anybody kind of put up crazy results so far.
True.
So I think, again, not the same level that we've seen, whether it's, Boston, Rangers, Columbus.
Right. This
is a different, step up in class, especially out west, where you only make that trip once. You'd like to see them be ready for these games. So, I think it's hard to. Maybe the good thing is you can't really look past anybody. You're not getting a cream puff in there in the middle of all these difficult.
Right.
Ones. So,
right.
You started off in the area tomorrow, see how you do there, and then you jump right back into the gauntlet.
And then the trek continues. Second of back-to-backs, 9 p.m. start Eastern. Utah against the Mammoth, now named Utah Mammoth.
Right.
And that's not going to be an easy one either.
No, they're playing really well. I think it's been a long time coming. It's funny how all the Coyotes history got wiped away when they moved to Utah, but It's still the same team. It's still the same franchise.
Right.
That we've, a lot of young guys have come into that system, and they're really starting to mature. You love what Clayton Keller does. Logan Cooley is a really good player. They've got, Dmitry Simashev now on defense, one of their high draft picks. Mikhail Sergachev is kind of the anchor back there. They're getting good goaltending from Karel Vejmelka, Vitek Vanacek. They've kind of come back down to earth after a really good start, but they can score. And I think that's kind of been a danger for the Islanders, because teams that can score, the Islanders know they can score, but can they defend? And especially coming off that back-to-back with a little bit of travel in between, that's a tough spot. And we're going to see, maybe we'll see David Riddick there coming off not a great performance against Minnie. So maybe the little bit of break for him as a backup, we'll see him do some good.
Yeah, I think you got to go Sorokin tomorrow, Sorokin Vegas, and then Riddick against Utah.
You would think so.
We shall find out.
We're not the goalie coach.
We are not. We're not even a consultant.
We don't have a say.
No, zero. And to round out the week, Sunday, Colorado, familiar face over there, Mr. Brock Nelson. That's going to be a fun one, too. We'll see what happens, but another tough opponent.
What is your definition of fun, exactly?
Well, you may have picked up on it, Arthur, but sometimes I use a bit of sarcasm around here.
Yeah, I get it.
But it could be fun.
Yeah,
sometimes the Isles play Colorado pretty well.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
So, I think it could be fun in a positive way. We'll find out.
Of the teams in the West, I feel like that's the one that's really been, they've lost a lot of games in overtime and in the shootout, but you saw what they did in Edmonton the other night. Goodness gracious, 9-1, pasting on the Oilers. And, Brock Nelson has been really good, but I think his role is a little bit different now. They don't need him to score. He's been kind of more of a matchup center, a guy who wins faceoffs, kills penalties. He's getting paid a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think he understands. He's kind of the veteran, do-it-all guy. When you've got McKinnon, you've got Cale Makar, you've got Marty Necas. They get enough scoring from where they get it. Our old friend Devon Taves is perennial all-star out there now.
Yes. Miss that man.
The original sin of Islanders moves when they got rid of him instead of anybody else, but that's for a whole other episode. The
pandemic's fault.
It'll be good to see Brock Nelson playing against them. I think we talk about the old sauce. We saw it with Mike Riley, who was not an Islander for very long. God knows Brock Nelson, one of the all-time great Islanders of the last 20 years, what he's going to do to them. But they have a really, really powerful lineup, and that's a game the Islanders really need to be ready for, and you don't know what's going to happen in the 3 games leading up to that. If we're stumbling into that one, goodness gracious, I don't know what we're going to get.
Well, I think this may be the week that lets us know if the Islanders are going to hang around, or if maybe we get a dose of reality here. You know what I mean? Because, again, they're just kind of treading water against some not so great teams so far, and now you're playing some of the cream of the crop here, and if they can steal some points, listen, you come back 500 from this, you're feeling great, right?
I agree.
So if they can do something like that, and this new lineup that they have, I still want to talk about that, but this new lineup that they have, can find some more success. Maybe they come back with a couple more points. They're still in the thick of that rat race with all the teams that are bunched up with all those. I mean, everybody's still in it right now. Yeah. but this is a week where they could not be in it so much if things don't go well.
I think if you lose all 4 in regulation, yeah, we're talking, okay, this is not the season that we wanted it to be.
Right.
But if you can get some points, if you can get 4 points out of these 4 games, maybe 5 points out of these 4 games, you're still in that mix. It does seem like nobody's really kind of fallen away from the pack yet.
Right.
But I think, some of the people around the league talk about Thanksgiving is kind of that, like,
right.
if you're more than 4 points out of a playoff spot at Thanksgiving, it's really tough to pop back up. Maybe this year is not going to be that year because there is so many teams bunched up.
Right.
But yeah, a 4-game losing streak, especially against these good teams, is going to show us, yeah, maybe this Islander team should be looking towards 26, 27 and start thinking about some veterans being moved out before the trade deadline. So yeah, I think you don't want to put too much pressure on a week in November, but it is kind of important.
Well, one way or another, folks, we will be watching. That'll do it for What's on Tap. It is time to go to Hero of the Week. That's right, Hero of the Week presented by Knock Hockey, the all-time family fun favorite. Get your board at knockhockey.com. The holidays are right around the corner.
Yeah.
That's accurate, right?
It is. It's coming up soon. Very quickly.
Yes, indeed. All right, so Hero of the Week. I don't know. I think you went first last week.
Yeah, you go first now.
All right, I'll go first. It would have been very easy to make this a unanimous decision, as I know who your guy is, but I wanted to go with JG Pageau. I feel like he's having a nice, quiet, solid season so far. This guy had a goal versus Minnesota, goal and 2 assists versus the Rangers. We talked about that. He's 5-6-11 in 15 games played. That's pretty damn good. And I know you said that faceoffs aren't important, Arthur, but he's gotten his number back up to 62.2% in the circle.
Did I say they're not important?
You said they don't mean anything.
Sometimes they are. In certain specific.
You said why even bother?
They should just throw the puck out there, see who gets it first. Yeah, okay. I'll stick by it.
All right, so that's my guy, JG. I think he's having a really good season so far. I mean, a lot of guys are so far this season. They're putting up numbers. You're getting kind of scoring by committee, but this is a guy who he's had a couple years where his numbers kind of, dipped a little bit. He struggled a little bit, but he looks great this year.
Yeah, and it's got a twofold benefit. It's benefiting the team, try to see if they can become a team that we want them to be a team that's competing for a playoff spot. And also, he's certainly improving his trade value around the league. And, we don't want to go after game 15 right to they could get a first-round pick for him. But obviously, that is something that's on the table. He is going to be an unrestricted free agent after the year. Good on Matthew Darche for kind of evaluating. I feel like this would be the kind of start that would prompt Lou Lamoriello to sign him to a deal that's probably too long for a guy his age. And I feel like he is a guy, his pedigree, he's had some good playoff runs in Ottawa and with the Islanders. Mm-hmm. He is a guy that will be very coveted at the trade deadline. And I think there will be, even more, he's a center. Guys, teams are always looking for centers, especially at the number 3C spot that he fits so well here. So yeah, that's a good choice. He's having a great start to the season, and I think it's not only having an impact for the Islanders, it's having an impact for the other 31 teams that are paying attention.
Yeah, and that goal he put up against Minnesota was a beauty. Unfortunately, it just didn't amount to much.
True.
But Arthur, it's your turn. What do you got?
I went for the obvious choice. I went with Bo Horvat, and I think I threw it out on Twitter even after the Friday night disaster. Is Bo Horvat now a real consideration for the Canadian Olympic team? I have to think so. And he's a guy, there's a lot of there's politics that goes into it. He's a guy that always makes himself available, whether it's world championships for Canada. I think we saw it with Brock Nelson, a guy who's gone overseas to play Worlds a lot and then got a shot in the Four Nations last year. And I think Horvat's in the same boat. Canada's obviously loaded at forward, but he's a guy that obviously the 11 goals in 15 games is amazing. We haven't had a 50-goal score around here since God knows when. 1992-93, Pierre Turgeon.
Yes,
but that is a long time. I don't know if he can keep that pace up, but we've talked about the Islanders not really having a true number one center going into the season. Mm-hmm. He's a true number one center now. He's playing like you could put anybody on his wings, and they will elevate their game to play with him because he's out there. He's finding the net. He's taking faceoffs. He's on the power play. He's killing penalties. He's doing all the things that you need a number one center to do, and he's doing them really well. Now,
you can probably put anybody on his wing, but I don't think you want to take Hyman off his wing.
No, I think, and that's to Horvat's benefit, but I think mostly to Emil Hyman's benefit. You're seeing some really good stuff from him because Horvat is off to such a hard start. You'd wonder Heineman, and I don't think would be creating those kinds of opportunities for himself if he didn't have such a good center playing with him.
I think that's fair, but to your point, with kind of Horvat bringing out the best in Heineman, I mean, I think we're seeing a lot in this guy that we didn't really know we had, right? Yeah. Not just the shot, but the playmaking ability too. Some of the setups he's had for Horvat have been great as well.
Yeah, and you like this pairing. You know, Heineman's a young guy. Obviously, he needs a new contract at some point.
Yeah,
but you a lot more enthusiastic about signing him to that deal, knowing the chemistry he's got with Bo Horvat.
No question about it. So, folks, there's your heroes, JG Peugeot, Bo Horvat, and that will do it for Hero of the Week, presented by Knock Hockey, the all-time family fun favorite. Get your board at knockhockey.com. And now we're going to tell you guys about Isles Fix, actually. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the only Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. And now we go to Questions Brewing, Arthur. We're going to Questions Brewing.
It's
I think we're going to Questions Brewing.
It's time for Questions Brewing.
So go ahead. Ask us a question.
That's right. The name of this segment is Questions Brewing. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to answer some questions now. Edzo, how are you?
That's a good start to the Questions Brewing. Just asking how I am. How are you?
Buddy, apparently I'm having trouble. Apparently I'm in a bit of a way right now.
We were off to a hot start till that.
Listen, man, the train can only stay on the tracks for so long. What can I tell you?
It's tough.
But you having a good time back there, pal?
Yes.
How's your buddy Jay?
Myself and Jay Shoulder, which is in shot. We're doing pretty great.
Okay. And how's the chat going today?
We're yapping.
Okay, love to hear it. You got some questions for us?
Yeah, I'll start off with Matthew here. He says, what are your thoughts on the D pairings from last night, and should they stay?
I think they should.
Yeah.
I mean, they worked. I'd love to see every other team score as little as the Rangers do, but kind of what we were saying before, Pelech has been really good this year. So you want to see him, pick up Tony DeAngelo. That's kind of a good offensive defenseman, defensive defenseman pairing. Matthew Schaefer can play with anybody. So playing with Ryan Pulock, they seem to play pretty well. And Alex Romanov settling his game down, playing a few fewer minutes alongside Scott Mayfield. I think for now, that's what you like to see. Eventually, I think you want to see Alex Romanov go back up the lineup, whether it's with Ryan Pulock, who he played a few games with last year, and they weren't too bad. Maybe they do that, and you put Schaefer back with Mayfield. They've been a very good pair so far. And again, I think if you just put Matthew Schaefer out there by himself, one defenseman, four forwards, everything would go fine.
You did say that.
So yeah, I'd stick with him. Worked out. Best defensive game of the year so far.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Much better result last night. Let's see if they can find some consistency there.
Next up from Cheesecake Pie.
Ooh,
the name
right.
that absolutely speaks to me. He says, is Prokhorov a bust? He has 0 points and seems that he hardly plays for a second-round pick. You never hear anything at all. What's the latest update, if any?
It's a shame we can't go back in time and ask Chris about that.
Yeah, I don't know if Chris is watching KHL games or VHL games where Daniil Prokhorov is spending most of his time. The KHL is kind of a funky place. I think that's the best way I can describe it. Prokhorov was a project really to begin with. 6'5", 206-pound, 18-year-old. I don't think he was going to be physically mature and ready for the KHL. They play a lot of pro veterans there in that league. It's not like Victor Eklund in the SHL where he's getting his opportunity to play on top line with a lot of other prospects. And the KHL, unless you're a Matvei Michkov or an Artemi Panarin or somebody like that, you're not going to tear that league up. So the fact that he's been sent down a couple times, we don't really know what's going on there, what the interpersonal situation is with him. But he is a big kid. Big kids take longer, and he's in a league where you don't really see a lot of flourishing from second or third round picks like that. So I think we can be a little more patient than just whatever it's been, 13, 14, 15 games for him so far.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Ed.
All right, so that answers that. Next up from Mr. Thomas Boyle, do you see Gleb getting a call-up before the new year?
Oh, Gleb Veremyev questions. You want to take that one or you want me to take that
I'm going to go to you on that. I'm going to defer to you,
call
Arthur.
Chris again for that one. College free agent, another local kid. He had a really good training camp, scored a couple goals in the Garden in that preseason game.
Right.
and I think he was a Ranger fan growing up, so I'm sure that was special for him. But these are lottery tickets when you sign an undrafted college free agent. It's good that they got him. He was in demand, and I think he's playing pretty well down in Bridgeport too.
Okay.
Fitting in well. Probably have to be a few injuries to see him get called up. Those kind of guys don't really rise to the top that quickly. But as Chris pointed out, you're 22, 23 years old coming in as an undrafted free agent. You have to pop right away. You have to show your new team that you're ready to come up because they have the 19 and 20-year-olds that are obviously draft picks, guys that they've had their eyes on for a long time. So,
right.
I think if he keeps going at this rate and maybe there's a couple of injuries, I think he showed a little bit of moxie too. Willingness to play with an edge in the preseason games that I saw him play. That's a good spot for a fourth liner.
Sure.
And like we were talking about, we haven't really seen a lot of consistency from that fourth line. So maybe there's an opportunity for him down the road, if things really go south this week and we start thinking about the future, this season is kind of a wash. After the trade deadline, there's going to be some opportunities because there'll be some guys moved out. So, maybe wait and see on him for a few more months.
There you go. I agree with that as well.
Next up from Jeremy, he says, does Bridgeport have any AJ Greer type players? What's going on with Foudy?
It's actually pronounced Foodie.
Is it?
It is.
Why? Then why? Why is it FOUDY?
Why don't you spell it that way?
Why don't you just do two O's and then it's Foodie? These hockey, I tell you.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I understand people want to see someone that could come right up and keep the flies off Matthew Schaefer. I think if they had that kind of guy that was close to NHL ready, he would already be here. So I don't think they have that kind of guy. I think there's a few young guys. Eetu Liukis is a big kid, but I don't think he's really a physical guy that Chris mentioned as someone to keep an eye on as a prospect. But I think we've had this debate already here. I've had it online an awful lot. I don't think we need a 7-minute-a-night enforcer to try to get on the ice with Matthew Schaefer,
right,
and punch everybody. We didn't really get into what happened in that game with Nikita Zadorov and Schaefer, where he gave him a few extra shots behind the net.
We should probably talk about that.
And to me, part of what made Anthony Duclair have such a good week was he was the first guy in, kind of jumped on Zadorov's back.
Yes, he did,
and that is not what Anthony Duclair does. And I think when you see that, you say, everybody on this team, whether they are a skill guy or a guy who maybe plays with an edge or has fought before, they all know where their bread is buttered, and that is Matthew Schaefer. And they want this kid to succeed. Everybody likes this kid. He's kind of ingrained himself in the fabric of this team already. Right. So if everybody's ready to defend him, I don't think you need that enforcer type. So I think it'd be nice to have someone like that develop at Bridgeport and show that they have a little bit of an edge, but I think we're going to have to wait and see on that one.
No, I'm with you 100% on that. I think that day and age is just come and gone.
Yeah.
You want guys who can actually contribute, to the game as opposed to just policing the ice. And just to kind of piggyback off of that, do you think that this is something that Patrick Waugh had to sit down in the room and say, fellas, if anybody touches number 48, you guys better be on whoever's doing that? Or you think they kind of understood the assignment?
I think we saw it, at the end of that Detroit game where they really romped and was it Mason Appleton kind of got into it. And as soon as everybody on the ice saw what was happening, the whole wave just went over there. I think they understand, when you're a pro for a long time and they have a lot of veterans on this team, that you have a star young player who's very young for the world and as skilled as he is, you need to be sure to remind other teams, if you want to mess with him, you're going to mess with all of us. And it doesn't matter if you're a guy who fights or if you're, in the case of Duclair and Zadorov, if you got a guy who's got 70 pounds and about 8 inches on you just get in there. And it's great to see guys doing it without thinking. We haven't seen everybody on the ice with him when that stuff has happened. And
right.
So yeah, I think nothing really needs to be said from Patrick Waugh. I think what's said is if it's something needs to be said, it's Anders Lee, it's Bo Horvat, it's guys who are the veterans on this team saying, yeah, we all look out for each other, and especially we look out for him.
And I think even if the Islanders did have a guy like Reeves or whomever, guys are still going to get their shots in on Schaefer anyway.
Yeah, you're not going to skate next to him all the time. I mean, he's the most skilled young defenseman in the league.
Right.
He goes off on his own. Yeah. No one can even keep up with him.
Right.
And I think you just have to get used to it. It happened for John Tavares, who got a reputation early on as a guy who's maybe chirping to the refs a little too much. Same thing happened with Sidney Crosby early in his career.
Yeah.
You were gonna, I think maybe Alex Ovechkin is the only guy that hasn't happened to because he's built like a truck.
Yes.
Nobody wanted to mess.
He was
with
hitting
him.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you just have to get used to it. I know that sounds frustrating and unfair
Not
to
the
Islander
best,
fans where you're
yeah.
like watching him, watching an oaf like Zadorov knock him down.
Right.
But you got to live with it. And I think the other part is Matthew Schaefer, he's holding on to Zadorov's stick.
Yes.
He knows to mix it up too. He is
right.
His hockey IQ is off the charts for this kid. So I don't think he is too worried about getting too roughed up because he wants to engage in that too.
It's not putting him off his game.
No.
He's battling through it, which is good to see.
He seems to like it.
For sure. Ed.
Another one from Jeremy. He says, would Lou have drafted a kid like Aitchison? He seems like a fun personality along with Schaefer and the Prokhorov kid. They appear to have a different flavor than what the team has been used to.
I mean,
it's a fair
Lou
question.
drafted Cole Eiserman, and Cole Eiserman has a whole lot of FU in his personality.
Yeah, that's true.
So, I think, Matthew Darche has not really changed too much of the scouting staff. The main scouts are still there.
Right.
A few guys have changed, but not many. So, I think you draft it's okay to have a little personality, and I don't think Lou shied away from that. But I think picking where the Islanders picked, I think almost any GM would have taken Kishon Aitchison. Kind of like what Chris Peters was saying. He fell a little bit in the draft from the perception beforehand. So did Victor Eklund. But Aitchison, I don't know that he fell because of his personality.
Right.
But if that was a part of it, the Islanders can say thank you to the other
Absolutely.
to the GMs who passed him.
Absolutely.
This kid has a brashness to him, and he has the skill to back it up. So that's what you love to see.
Very excited for it. What do you got, Ed?
Dan Robinson, he asks, does Shabanov replace Casey when he returns?
Yeah, I don't know about that one. You want to take that?
Sure. Well, I know you spoke about it, was it last week when you talked about maybe it's time for Casey to be spelled a little bit, right? It's not the worst thing in the world if he comes out of the rotation every now and then. The only problem is I don't think Shabanov's playing center.
No.
So, maybe you can, rework the fourth line a little bit. And as you said, too, it's still kind of a work in progress, right? If there's one line they haven't really figured out yet, it's the fourth. Siplikov got back in. I don't know. I really don't know what the solution is there. And I'm curious. And I don't even know if you want Shabanov on the fourth line, right? I don't know if that's the right place for him. And, maybe he kind of has to wait to get back into the lineup, especially if they continue the play that they had last night, right? If they start this week and they're doing well, and I don't know what his trajectory to come back is, but maybe they don't rush him back into the lineup just because there isn't the right spot for him yet.
Interesting thought I had watching the game the other night, seeing Cal Ritchie getting, some intermittent shifts at center, but mostly on the wing. What if you had him as the 4C? He's a kid who has the kind of well-rounded game. He hasn't shown us a lot offensively yet, but I think he's such a smart player, and he needs to be at center. He should be playing big minutes if he's going to go back to the AHL. But if he's here, if you had a fourth line that's not really a fourth line, like a Shabanov,
I see where you're going.
Siplikov, you've got your checking line. You've got Pajot centering what's basically a checking line. You've got a second line, whether Barzal's there or not. You've got guys that are responsible defensively, and you can deploy that third line as your checking line. If Casey Zizekas is off that line or taking a seat, you can have a fourth line, even if it's going to play 9 or 10 minutes with Ritchie in the middle of the two Russian guys. Maybe they provide a little offense. Maybe they provide a little bit of, a little bit of skill in a spot where you're getting fourth line versus fourth line matchups and teams aren't used to it. I think they can play around with it, and that would be one interesting spot. But again, like you said, you don't really have a lot of centers. You've got Kyle McLean. That's really the only alternative if Ritchie's not going to be there to spot in for Casey.
I do like that idea, though, and maybe they do, poach an extra minute or two, out of the night if they are going well, because, it could be a rare fourth line that actually has a bit of skill that can be a threat where the other team kind of has to pay attention and be like, okay, these guys can score too.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, speaking of Cal Ritchie, Dale S. wants to know if he's here to stay.
That's a good
I asked
question.
you that last week.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's really to be determined. I think this is going to be a big week for him too.
Right.
Big week for the whole team. But you want to see how your young guys react to playing some really good teams and also not getting the matchup. So if he's out there, he's going to see some really good players. If he can handle himself, I think he can stick around, because I don't think he's not one of those guys where you're saying, if we call him up, he's got to be in the top 6 or else he shouldn't be here. He is a kid who is going to be a top 9 player.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows whether it's going to be on the wing or at center, but if he's
Yeah.
going to be a center, he's going to have to take a big step, at least according to the people that I talked to become a number 2 center. So if he really projects as a number 3 or as maybe a second line wing, you can throw him out there in these, playing 10 or 11 minutes a night, and I don't think it's going to affect him too much. I think he's a smart kid. So if he can show some more versatility, I guess, then you think he'd have a chance to stick around longer.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
We touched on this next question a little bit during Hero of the Week because Bo Horvat was your hero, but Tom wants to know if you see him getting 50 goals.
Ooh, I would love to see it. It's amazing how long it's been since they've had a 50-goal scorer.
I had to ask during the game last night because, all the stats are coming out. Bo Horvat, as of the end of the game, he was tied for the lead. I think that ended up changing after the game was over. But I was like, when was the last time, not only a 50-goal scorer, but even just a guy this late into the season being at the top of the crop there?
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, look, obviously there's going to be some regression to the mean here. I mean, let's hope not. But is this pace going to keep up? No, but sure, I think he's got a shot of 50.
Yeah, I mean, unless he goes completely in the tank, knock wood, he's going to get 35 or so. You'd think at least 35, maybe even 40, and it's been a while since they've even had a 40-goal scorer.
Fact.
Almost a decade, I think, since Anders Lee did it. So, it's surprising that team like the Islanders, which I know has not had a ton of success, but they've certainly had some high-end players over the years, whether it was Turgeon or Ziggy Palffy, Tavares. We just haven't seen it very much. So yeah, it'd be nice to not only keep up this pace, but kind of be in the chase and keep it interesting towards the end of the year.
For sure. Absolutely.
And an age-old question, do you see the NHL getting rid of the shootout?
Ed, I've been praying for it ever since it showed up in the league. But unless Arthur, knows something I don't, it doesn't seem like the league is interested in getting rid of it. I mean, I think they love the parity, and we're seeing that in spades this season, but they love the fact that teams are kind of still in the mix late into the season, even if they're pretenders, right? Yeah. Even if, they're collecting garbage points like shootout points, right? It keeps them in the mix. It keeps a few more fans in the seats later into the season, right? There's a little more money at the gate because there's teams that aren't falling out in January, February. They might extend into March because they picked up some garbage shootout points, right? And I think these are lame reasons, but I think for reasons, such as that, I don't think the shootout's going anywhere. I hope I'm wrong. I'd rather, whatever the solution is, whether it's extending 3-on-3, going back to 4-on-4 and doing that for 7 minutes or whatever. And I think I've said this already, and I don't think anybody agrees with me, but I'd rather go back to ties than having shootouts.
You have said that before.
There you have it.
Okay. That ain't happening.
No.
Yeah, I think the only solution right now is probably 2 more minutes of 3-on-3. Get it to 7 minutes.
Give it to
Try
me.
to end as many games as you can. We really have seen a dip since 3-on-3 started. There's a lot fewer games that are decided in shootouts. I know,
which is good news.
Feel like it because nobody really likes it,
right?
And also, I'm sure that some of the reasons that we don't like it around here is because the Islanders are so bad at it.
Sure.
And when it started for the first decade, they were the best team in the league in shootouts.
And I still hated it. I'll tell you, you can go back on the tape.
Okay.
And it wasn't like I was like, yeah, the shootout's great, Franzi, you know what I mean? Like, no, I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. It just happens to not be working out for them now. But it's not hockey.
I get it.
It's not hockey.
I get it. Neither is 3-on-3.
Well, people are agreeing with Dan Robinson.
It's
agrees
a little
with you,
more
Sean.
hockey than the shootout is.
A little bit more.
Yeah. Michael Ryan, he says Adam Pelech is +9 on the season. For a guy that plays almost entirely defensive minutes and always plays against the other team's best forward, does he not get enough respect for his value to the team?
I like the question.
I think he, kind of in their heyday when he and Pollock were at their best, whatever, 6-7 years ago, I think he got plenty of respect around the league. Certainly got a good contract out of it. I think, again, he's still got a lot of years left on his deal. I think 4 years left, 3 or 4. But I think if he is playing this way, and certainly playing this way on a team that doesn't defend well when he's not on the ice, again, if things are not going great as this season goes along, maybe he's a guy that Matthew Darsh throws a few feelers out, sees what teams would be willing to give up. That's probably more of an off-season deal. But I'd be interested to see what they could get for him and whether a team would be willing to eat, bite the bullet on the rest of his contract, because now with the cap going up, it's not as onerous as it was maybe before. I don't think his trade protection is the same as it was in the first few years of his deal. So not a guy you want to lose necessarily on a team that doesn't defend well. But you're looking at Matthew Schaefer, you're looking at Keishon Aitchison, also a lefty. So you've got some guys coming up on that side that maybe can fill those spots and make him a little bit more valuable as a trade chip rather as a guy on the team.
Yeah, and I think it's great that he's playing as good as he is. And again, I know you don't like me bringing this stuff up, but the health thing has been good so far, right?
I mean, God, I can't believe you did that.
Listen,
that was like when you jinxed how great the show was going before.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, it's a self-inflicted wound. What can I tell you? But no, it's good to see that he's healthy. Pulick's been healthy. A lot of games to go, but Pellick's looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Another one from Jeremy Ford Hamlet. He says, I think Richie needs to step up and start playing 10-plus minutes a night. If he's playing 8 or less minutes a night, is he better served playing bigger minutes in the A?
I mean, probably, but for the reasons we mentioned before, I think he is a guy who projects out as someone who's going to be someone who does a lot of the little things well for this team. So, if you see him playing limited minutes, I don't think it's quite as big a blow. Let's say when Cole Eiserman gets here and he's a guy that gets called up, you need to see him in the top 6. He's a goal scorer. He's a winger. He needs to be in an offensive style situation. I don't think Cal Ritchie's in the same boat.
Yeah, agreed.
Dale S., he says, why are so many teams struggling in the NHL? For an example, Edmonton.
I think because everybody sucks.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a bit strong,
it was very strong.
You were talking about parity.
Yeah.
There is a lot of mediocrity. We saw it a lot last year, too. I feel like, there was a couple of years ago where the 8 teams that were in the playoffs, I think out of the first month, were the 8 teams that made the playoffs.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
I think it was one of the years the Islanders missed. It was Barry Trotz's last year. We don't see that anymore. I think we're just seeing a lot of mushy middle.
Yeah.
And Edmonton shouldn't be there, but
right.
They are there. There's some teams in the East that probably shouldn't be there. Florida's been 500 the whole time. I mean, they obviously have some injury issues. You wouldn't have guessed really that the Rangers, even though their roster has changed a lot, you wouldn't have guessed that they'd be where they are. Winnipeg has had some struggles. I know they picked it up lately. Toronto's not been very good. Out in the West, Vancouver's really been struggle. I don't know how good we thought they were going to be. Edmonton, obviously. Minnesota, even with the win the other night, they haven't been very good at all. So yeah, I think it's just part of the pattern.
The league sucks, bro. Sorry, man.
There we go. Hockey stinks. Good night, everybody.
You got one more?
I think that about wraps it up, but Tom was asking about our next viewing party.
Ooh.
I believe you knew that. And also, I was curious, did we have an anthem for Arthur tonight?
Oh,
did we
great
have one?
question.
We got to sneak that back in.
Yeah, we're going to sneak that one back in. Arthur, after everything we talked about tonight, what's your anthem?
Well, we know where they are. This week could be very determinative one way or another. So I went with an emo classic, Jimmy Eat World, The Middle. We don't want to see the Islanders be there right now. Maybe this is not a bad thing so far. If they're still in the middle after this weekend, after this week coming up, maybe this will be a positive. It is a good track.
Great track.
That's the one I went for this week.
Love that track. This is a song I do know.
Hey!
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, everyone. It was actually a favorite of mine back when still listen to it now. That's a good band. Still a band I haven't seen live.
All right, well, we got to correct that.
Okay. How about you? You seen them?
No, I haven't, but I would like to.
All right. Well, great track. And yeah, the Isles are in the middle. We'll see if they can claw out of that. I would be very impressed if they can after this week. We'll have to wait and see. But I think that's going to do it. I think we're good to go.
All right. I like it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York. I want to thank Chris Peters of FloHockey for hanging out with us. Great stuff from him. And I want to thank our wonderful sponsors, starting with Knock Hockey. Less scrolling, more scoring. Get your board at knockhockey.com. Once again, the holidays are coming around. It's a great gift for the kids, for the family. knockhockey.com. Also, a big thanks to Razor Kniff and Launstein Attorneys at Law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW-1500 for a free consultation. And folks, do not forget to rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already, to let everybody know how much you love the show and Arthur Staples' contributions and my presence here as well. Arthur, where can we find you on the internet?
Stape NHL on Twitter, Art Stape at Blue Sky, and might have a new announcement coming this week.
There's been a lot of teasing going on here, man. What's the story?
Something new to add to the portfolio. It'll be fun.
Okay.
Not as much fun as this, but still fun.
Love that, Arthur. Thank you so much. He got the assignment. All right, folks, you can check myself out on Twitter at Shawnee Hockey, also on the Blue Sky. You can follow the show at Hockey Night NY on all social media platforms. You can check out the website at hockeynightny.com. We missed Jake tonight, but perhaps we'll go to the Snake Den next week. But for Arthur, for Jay, for Ed, and for Hockey Night New York, that's who we've been. I've been Sean Cuthbert. Have a great rest of your night.